go see blood. And if you squeeze me, you go feel the love. We are one people under the sun, one nation under the law. So who feel the black? Who feel the white? I don't know. But it's set till tomorrow night. Who feel the wrong? Who feel the right? Come and go. And all who feel the too bright, let me jump up, let me wind up, party non-stop. Ramage dingo lekekete, we come to play mass. Every creed and class, don't let nothing pass. Like a ready TV, all the love inside the way.
First woman Prime Minister, first woman Attorney General, first woman to chair the Commonwealth of 54 nations, first woman opposition leader. Welcome KPB Plus, solid everywhere.
Like a ready TV, all the love inside the way.
As I say, another good evening at another virtual forum of the United National Congress. And look, we've had a powerful lineup of speakers. Let's give them a round of applause. Senator Damian, MP Anita Haynes, MP Dave Tanku, and of course the ever-powerful Deputy Leader, JJ. You just light up the place. Tonight I will leave all that firepower to JJ because I have some other matters I want to raise. So let's also thank our two chairpersons, Kian and Nasser, out of the Grandi Corporation. And for those of you who have joined us in person here, those join us online, many things we can say tonight. Some has already been said, so I will not repeat. Our speakers already went at the throat tonight of Rowley and the PNM. So good evening, thanks for being here. As you know, our parliamentary recess will soon come to an end. We will go back into the parliament, the seat of our democracy, fighting for each and every citizen of our country. So we begin that parliament shortly. The government continues to launch attack after attack on economic livelihoods, on our well-being, social well-being, freedoms and liberties. And look, I saw the man said today that something happened on the highway. And it was Mr. Roger and the UNC. So somebody called me and asked me, did the geologists do a test on the sand? And the sand came from Sapara, and we used to call Sapara the Sand City. So did the geologists do a test on the sand to determine? The UNC had no part of that. I make that very clear tonight. We had nothing to do with that. The persons involved will answer for themselves. And they have a right, as everybody else, to protest, to take action, and that's happening all over the country. So they attack us all the time, the freedoms, liberties of citizens in every which way they can, verbally and otherwise. We will never allow them to turn our country into a state that is a dictatorship state. We must never, never, ever allow it. And since 2015, I believe that has been their intention. They have hijacked our blessed country. They have taken us down a path of destruction. They keep complaining. I mean, when they speak, it means one thing is very clear. They listen and they watch every UNC event. Whether it is this virtual meeting, whether it is the press conferences, and of course, all the TT speaks, they look at everything. Because when they speak, their entire conversation is talking about UNC activity. I'm glad. That means UNC is very alive and functioning as a great party in our country. So they know our schedule very well. I guess they're all locked on here tonight. And to Mr. Rowley, I will say this to you. You're a very foolish man. You are a very foolish man. When the whole of the North and the West is flooded out today, what is going to be your answer? You're going to say, blame Kamla for the flooding up in the Northwest. You might decide to take buses and instead put boats. And then you will say, it's Kamla sent the boats. Blame Kamla. So now when the whole country is under flood, they laughed at us. I think speakers told us they used to laugh at us and say, South Central, Lagoon, build house in Lagoon. Well, which lagoon is in the west? They may tell me you living up there. And so the whole country is under flood. So even when JJ mentioned the Express called them out and talked about nothing for South and Central, that is not true. There is nothing for anyone under this PNM in this country. Whether it is in North, South, Central, East, West, wherever it is, everybody is suffering. Everybody is suffering. And whilst we recognize they find ways to just to give to PNM, they're not giving to the PNM grassroots. They're giving to their friends and the financiers and their big shots. That's what's happening. So is everybody under pressure under this wicked government? Wicked. Mr. John called them stupid. Well, on top of being stupid, they are wicked because every single one is suffering. For us, we hold these meetings. We do our virtuals. We do our press conferences. We do the TT Speaks. We do the other activity because that's our job. As a responsible party, it is called accounting to the people we serve. Accounting to the people we serve. That is a concept that is alien completely to Rowley and his government. They don't understand that you have to account to the people who put you there, who pay you there to be there, and the people whom you serve. Leadership is not about shouting at people, not about blaming people for everything. It's about listening to people, finding solutions. And unlike many in the PNM, I will always listen to the people who elected us to serve. We will always be focused on fixing problems rather than focusing on fixing the blame on someone else. We in the UNC we have love for everyone. So I hope every citizen can find some peace and love in their hearts. We have no hate for anyone, only love. And we wish everyone to find some happiness in their lives. That is what we are focused on, improving the quality of life of every single one. Always remember, if no one loves you, Damien, for any one of you here, that's not true. You have some lovely babies now. And if no one loves you, we in the UNC love you very much. So we keep the consultations, we keep the work going, we listen to you. So last week we kicked off our pre-budget 2022 consultations in Chaguanas. What a bumper crowd that was. Did you see it? Let's give them a round of applause. Bumper, the hall was overflowing. Kirk Megu says it's what, standing room only. So people were very keen. They wanted to come and share their thoughts and their ideas of things we can do to make our country better. Then our second consultation down in Tabellan with Representatives Mayaro, Rio Claro, Princess Town Corporations. And this event, again, was a bumper crowd with standing room only. Massive successes, halls overflowing. People wanted to join and share their views. And these will head off. I would want to thank our team. And Ms. John made a point. I'm not the one-man leader. We have a team. I want to thank Khadija, who went to presented there, Saddam Hussein, MP Tanku, and all the others, all the councillors, local reps, and people from civil society to make these events a success. So don't forget, we continue the consultations. The next one this week will be in the Sawa, Laventil, Diego Martin, and Port of Spain corporations. Again, we reach out to every part of the country. So next Thursday, we will have this consultation. And thereafter, on Saturday, the 3rd September, we will be joining the Grandy Corporation. Yes, Kenman will be with you all up in Grandy. Where is he? Yes, always present. And of course, the other persons up there. We want a bumper crowd in Grandy as well. So in addition to this for the budget consultations, I have personally written to stakeholders, NGOs, trade unions, chambers of commerce, and so on, to ask them for their views. They can send it to us by way of the email, or if they want to come in and speak to our team to share their ideas for budget 2022-2023. So we continue consultations and keep looking at our social media pages. You will see the venues and times for these other consultations that we are having. We will continue to have our press conferences. Yes, Mr. Rowling. We will continue to do our virtual reports. We will continue to do our budget consultations and much, much, much more. We will continue to listen to people and continue to represent their needs and concerns in and outside of the Parliament. Now, while we take a look at what some of our speakers have been doing tonight, and we look at the newspapers and the social media, and we are talking about the state of our country, the chaos that we are in, I think it's a good time to remind you of some of the achievements of the UNC. We must never forget them. We must never forget them. And we must remember the Rowley government would have spent $400 billion at the end of this fiscal year next month. Over $400 billion they would have spent. Very sad. So let's take a look at some of these achievements. We have had a really great role in the development of our country for all the people. We have saved democracy. We spread development throughout TNT. We have been in government for the short period of 11 years. Remember that, you know? The PNM has been there for how long? 50 years, Kirk is telling me. In government for 50 years. The UNC government has only been in office on 2 occasions, under Mr. Pandey, and then under my watch, 11 years. So we are a relatively young party. The PNM was formed under colonialism, remember that? So they've been there forever. And we were formed out of a struggle against the oppression from the PNM and against the PNM policies of divide and rule, which they continue to do up to today. Up to today, their policy, their main policy is divide and rule, just like the colonial masters. And in our time, there is so much we have to be proud of. Many have spoken of it. It was the UNC who created the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. Remember that? That is what is keeping our country afloat today. Because they keep drawing down from the fund, but they will not tell us how much they have put in and have not accounted to the Parliament for how much they have taken out in spite of their so-called windfall from the energy sector. Before that, the PNM never wanted to save. It was just about squandering our oil revenue. So I'm very proud, under Mr. Pandey, it was a UNC government creating the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. And that fund is what is known as a rainy day fund, because when things are not so great, the revenue streams are not so great, you have the savings that you can dip into to help the country. We have so much, I say, to be proud of. It was the UNC, again, as others have told us tonight, and we will continue to repeat it because I think one of the greatest achievements of the 2 UNC governments has been in the sector of education. As Minister of Education under the Pandey watch, for the first time in the history of our country, we made sure that every child got a place in a secondary school. Every single child. Before that, every year when the common entrance was written, thousands of children were thrown off. They fell through the cracks, those favorite words, were not given a space in a secondary school. When we built the schools up in Bish and other parts, they said we building schools for what? Dwen. Oh, you all remember? Lagahu and Dwen. There's only one Lagahu I know and one Dwen. Is the man who said we were building the schools for Dwens. That's a short man himself. And so they were happy to continue the shift system. You remember that dreaded, horrible shift system, what it was doing to our children? That whole generation of shift children became shift people, became shift workers. They could not sustain for a whole day's basis because they would go to school half day and stay home half day. To do what? So we got rid of that shift system. We got rid of it. It was the UNC that made sure that we gave every child, you all may forget this one, every child early childhood education free. Free. Under my watch, under Pandey's watch, we got every child in the secondary school. Under my watch, we continue that, and free early childhood education. What has become of that? Not anymore. It was the UNC who championed the cause for internal self-government for Tobago. You all may not know that. Some may want to forget it. It was the UNC who championed that for self-government and getting legislative autonomy for Tobago, by legislating in the parliament to put the TTRA in the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And thereafter, they were guaranteed a share. This is also was under the Pandey government, of which I was a part. I think Ms. John was a part of that government too, as minister. We guaranteed that they would get a share of the national budget every year. Rowley braying and preaching about self-government for Tobago has not yet done a thing. Again, more talk. Just talk and talk and talk, as they so often do, making big announcements and pronouncements, but no implementation. The PNM was opposed to all of that we did for Tobago then. When I went into government, we brought another bill for Tobago again. The PNM rejected it outright. They did not want it, and up to today, 7 years later, they still cannot give Tobago what Tobago deserves. Remember, it was a UNC government that was responsible for some of the most important democratic constitutional reforms in our country. The Freedom of Information Act is one of them. Remember that? And because of that Freedom of Information Act, we can get so much more information from government. For example, that's how we found out they have over 200 recusals of these cabinet ministers, revolving door in the cabinet, one out, one in. Recuse, go out, come back, next one out, revolving door policy for recusals. Under that Freedom of Information Act as well, we've seen recently state companies are denying that they're state companies and therefore they're not entitled to give out information when you ask. I think TSCT is one of the recent ones. They're claiming they are not a state company, but yet they're getting money from the state, your taxpayers' dollars. It was a UNC government who passed the Judicial Review Act, a most important piece of legislation. Very important piece of legislation. On top of that, it was a UNC government that passed the Equal Opportunities Act. Now, you may think that you are not using these pieces of law legislation, but these are very vital to ensure that a strong democracy is maintained. And so the UNC takes parentage of these very important pieces of legislation. We proved to the country that it is possible to reduce serious crimes. We proved that under Mr. Pandey's watch and under my watch. We are the only government ever to bring serious crimes down. We took it down for the lowest ever in 3 decades. And I give you the assurance, when you put us back, we will do it again. We will make it happen again. We undertook massive infrastructural development throughout the country. Remember, they used to call us the box train government. But thank God we did that. We didn't have the flooding that we have now. Infrastructure throughout the country, roads, bridges, highways, clearing water courses, improving drainage. We took credit for that, and we did it. You know, the Chinese have an ancient proverb. It says, and I quote, if you want to get rich, build a road first. If you want to get rich, build a road first. There's a lot of wisdom in that expression, and that is what the UNC government did all over the country. I am sure many of you can remember all these works. The highway coming down south, of course. Supposed to reach Point 14, and reach Point 14 7 years later under the BNM. Shame. Shame. Now they're saying Rowley boasting about agriculture when I showed you last week where he said we don't have land for agriculture. Well, people say he's right, you know. Because now all the potholes in the road, you could just plant a plant in the pothole and you don't have to get no land, you don't have to get nothing, you have to do nothing. In fact, I saw it up on social media, planting plants in the potholes. Fish farming too, yeah, you just go to the potholes again. So, the UNC expanded social support and social safety. We did it for students. We did it for single mothers. We did it for the elderly. We did it for the low income. We did it for the vulnerable young men in the crime-ridden communities. We did it for farmers. We lifted all up without fail, without discrimination. We showed the country that all of this could be done without raising a single tax. Not one tax was raised on our watch, not a single tax. In fact, we did the opposite. We removed the VAT, the tax, value-added tax, from over 7,000 food items. We did it. And every budget, I remember in P&M days before we went into government, as again, before budget, people running to buy gas, running to buy cigarette, alcohol, all the things that they would always put taxes on. Fellas get so crazy, they put in tax on your online purchases. And now Rowley's committing to this revenue authority. I repeat, the UNC is totally against the revenue authority in its present form. Totally against it. We were also responsible for establishing the National Operations Center, which helped us to deal with crime, which helped us to deal with natural disasters, helped with flooding, because we could get everything in one place and be able to administer what was necessary. We launched the E99, you all remember that? I remember when those vehicles came, they were painted blue and yellow. And they complained about the yellow on the vehicle. When everywhere in the world that you see these police vehicles, there's what? Yellow and blue, everywhere. These people are so full of hate, that just a color gets them upset. You know, you talk about a red flag to a bull, but they are like a yellow flag. They behave like some of those people. And they put everything in red. From way back when to now, everything in red. We showed the country, as I said, without new taxes. We introduced a rapid response unit. What has happened to all these things? Rapid response unit, E99. Is it that they are not refurbishing the vehicles, they're not fixing it, they're not giving the resources to the TTPS, and then want to blame the TTPS for everything, when you have a lazy, sleeping Minister of National Security, Hines, who stood on Tuesday and lied on that platform on Tuesday night, lied as they all did. They all lied on what they were saying. We constructed 93 primary and secondary schools throughout the country. We had 91 more schools under construction. We constructed 57 early childhood centers, and there was another 52 under construction. When they came in, vine growing on it everywhere, bush and vine, just abandoned these schools are. We established an Aviation Institute of Trinidad and Tobago at the Camden Airfield in Vancouver. We established the first ever drilling academy in the history of our country, because we had over 100 years in the oil sector. We established the Children's Life Fund to help children in need. We transformed fresh water, potable water distribution. When we got in 2010, water in your taps was just about 17%. By the time we left office, we had raised that to 74%. And our target was by 2018, we would have 90%. What has happened? All the taps have dried up again. Back to where? And the same thing is happening with tea and tech. Have you noticed how often electricity is cutting off? Within the last couple of days, I experienced blackouts in 2 days, one day, another day. I don't know what they're doing, Gil. They're just totally hopeless, incompetent, and wicked. We amended the Senior Citizens Grant Act to change the name of that act, call it Senior Citizens Pension Act, to make changes from senior citizens pension within that act. We would increase the ceiling for monthly pensions to $3,000. We set out the various income ranges as the criteria to access this pension. You know, what have they done? People have no jobs, so where they get pension from? The NIB has no money to even pay from their pension funds to people who have worked in their lives and made these contributions to the NIB. We settled 143 wage negotiations. That is performance, you're right. And there's so much more, it would take me all night to continue. But just one I want to raise with you, and that was both Anita and JJ talked about the first Prime Minister and his very famous statement that the future of the nation is in the book bags of the children. And I changed those words to be as follows. The future of the nation is in the laptops, in the book bags of the children. And so there's so much that we can be proud of, that we can do more to help everybody in this country. And before I go on to complain and gripe, let me share some policies I think that this government, we tell them, but they don't listen. As you all said before, don't listen. They harden. They just harden. They say stick break in the airs, I think is the expression, Kelvin. We have plans and suggestions to improve our country. Just a few I could see today as we are heading towards the budget presentation. Reduce taxes to help businesses. Yes. Reduce taxes to help businesses. Famous statement by Winston Churchill, you cannot tax a nation out of poverty. Cannot tax them out of poverty. The IMF's recent issue of the World Economic Outlook says that with increasing prices, continue to squeeze living standards worldwide, taming inflation should be the first priority for policymakers. And whilst the IMF is proposing higher taxes, I'm saying there's not a formula that works for everyone. We are a small, open, energy-based economy. We cannot take higher taxes on anything in this country. The suffering is already so great, the job losses are so great, that we should be reducing taxes to help small businesses. And secondly, invest in increasing the ease of doing business. You see, if businesses are not working well, the country can't work well. If businesses are shutting down, as they have been shutting down, where will you get your jobs? You'll be fired, you'll be put on the breadline, your family will be suffering. So invest in the ease of doing business. The length of time it takes to even just register business is intolerable. In every aspect. Look what's happening at the port now. We are told that the scanner is not working on the port. So what are they doing? Are they just letting these containers go free? Is that why we are getting so many guns and ammunition and drugs coming into the country? If you don't have the scanners working, you can't even get scanners working on your port. Where's the ease of doing business? Businesses depend on the port. You should have your port up and running. You told us some time ago you're going to sell the port or privatize the port. Well, again, more talk, no action. Nothing is happening. And so what they should do, reduce government spending will be problematic. They should not reduce government spending. They should use that spending to invest, as I say, in people, in human resources, and in tangible investments to increase the ease of doing business. Two ideas, I will say, and therefore a third. There must be more focus on the vulnerable. We have neglected the vulnerable for too long. They have continued to miss the mark to help the most vulnerable. The approaches to restart the school term, as Adina shared with you, Anita, shows their lack of empathy for the marginalized in our country. I repeat the call I made when classes were resumed earlier this year, that there are many families who cannot afford the uniform. They cannot afford the books, much less afford the book bag in which they'll put the books. They just can't. And I'd call that we should give the basic school uniform textbooks to the most vulnerable. We should give a grant for these things to the marginalized children. Again, I call for government to issue a uniform grant and expand access to textbooks for families in need. And next time we speak, maybe Anita or I, one of us, will tell you the amount of textbooks under my watch that we made available to the children in this country. I also repeat my call for migrant children to be allowed to attend public schools when the term starts in September. And the ability of our children to succeed is connected to their nutrition, to their diet. Under my tenure as Prime Minister, we expanded the school feeding program. We expanded it. I think Angie Benjamin was on that were you on the committee? Yes. We expanded that program. And so it is necessary for government not only to expand the school feeding program, but also to bring back the market basket. You're right, the market basket. Where has it gone? You're talking about agriculture and farming. Where has it gone? There's also a homework gap where we have nots, do not. and don't have the energy to pay attention when our children study at home because there's not enough food in the house to nourish the children. These programs must be made available to all children, including the migrant children, because they are all God's children, all God's children. I urge government to do far more for the children of our nation. And so we are here now, a nation in crisis at 60. As you all know, we will celebrate that 60th milestone this Independence Day. Do not let the PNM fool you into thinking they fought for any independence. If you know your history, the British fired us. They didn't want the colonies anymore. They said, go, please go, please go. So what fight did you fight? The British Empire was shedding the empire. The British were not fighting to keep us as colonies. And so you see, all of us around the same time, all the Caribbean here, all the Commonwealth, most of the Commonwealth nations, go, please go, all you go. That's how we got independence. It wasn't a fight. There was a fight, however, when they went up to Marlborough House to put in the terms of the Constitution. There was a fight there between the government and the opposition to ensure that there were some checks and balances in the Constitution that would ensure that all people, all would have an equal place and an equal space in our country. That was the fight, but not to get independence. After the World War, the British were determined to get rid of us because we were like pulling them down, you know. Sugar had gone. We were lucky we had oil, but most of the colonies had very little resources. And so the PNM inherited from the British a country blessed by God with abundant natural resources, a multicultural population living in harmony and safety. That is what the PNM inherited at the time of independence. At that time in 1962, we were about at the same GDP per capita. You may not remember, some of you are too young, but you could go check it. We were at the same GDP per capita levels as Singapore and Hong Kong. In fact, ours was slightly higher. After 60 years of independence, we should still be on par with these countries, but as you know, Singapore is way out in the world. Being blessed with so many gifts, natural resources, human resources. Instead, after 50 years of PNM rule, they have wreaked havoc, they've destroyed our country, and the worst of it happened in the last 7 years under Keith Rowley. And after $400 billion spent by Rowley and his government. Today, after 60 years, where do we stand compared to Singapore and Hong Kong, where, as I said, we were on par with them, and if not slightly higher at that independence time. Singapore's GDP per capita today is $72,000 US. Hong Kong's GDP per capita is over $49,000 US. Do you know what ours is? You'll be shocked. Trinidad and Tobago, remember we were richer in these countries because we had oil. So where are we when you compare them? Today we are at $15,000 US GDP per capita. And Rowley keeps saying he shut down the Petrotrin refinery because we had to import oil. Can I tell you something? Some of you may know. Singapore has one of the largest productive refineries, and they do not have a drop of oil in Singapore. They import every single drop of oil to run their refinery. And that's how they're doing so well. They're smart. They're not stupid as they say, not stupid like these people. So here we are. They destroyed the foundations of our country. They destroyed the railroad. You remember the railroad? Anybody here young like me could remember it? Well, I don't remember it, but I know where the railway lines are. So we'll have to look for somebody like Kenwin to help us, or Tahaka to help us. They destroyed Caroni. They destroyed agriculture. They destroyed Petrotrin. They destroyed Point Lisas. They destroyed iron and steel production. They destroyed safety and security. They destroyed national harmony. They destroyed democracy and are well on their way to establishing a dictator state. So the trail of destruction goes on and on from way back. And we've seen our country diminish now. We are on our knees. And they keep begging every day to borrow some money from somewhere and more money to borrow. Beg, 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 beg. Tax, 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 and borrow, borrow, borrow. The obstacle to our development for the past 60 years has always been the PNM. And I want to make the point again, the Rowley PNM is the worst of all, the worst of all. I want to say, as we approach this anniversary of independence, we in the UNC are committed to rescuing TNT from further destruction, to ensure that we become the paradise that we were and that we are meant to be. God has given us all the resources we need to be a great nation. We have the natural resources. We have the human resources. All we need is a government that has the policy, the vision, and the mission to rescue TNT and to build and grow and develop our country. That's what we need. And therefore, when you sing for independence this year, sing, Rowley must go. Rowley must go. Rowley must go. So in spite of all the evidence that everyone in our country is suffering, what are they coming to do now? On Friday, 2nd September, a Papi show again, Spotlight. Spotlight. And when you see who are the speakers, well, you know the only spotlight is going to be the country is great. We have recovered. Everything is good and grand and great. When everyone knows that's not true. Imbert and Rowley, they're going to the Hyatt. Spotlight. Imbert and Rowley are going to sip champagne, eat caviar at the Hyatt, while telling you that the same thing Stuart Young told CNN. You remember what he told them? The people in Trinidad and Tobago has never had it so good. That's what he said. He told CNN, the people of TNT never had it so good. Everything is wonderful. Stuart Young, where are you living? Where do you live? The colonial rulers believed that the society, they were naturally at the top, the colonial rulers, and that's where these guys want to be again. Like the old colonial masters, 60 years, the colonial rulers are gone, but we now have the PNM, and just like the colonial rulers of old, Imbert and Rowley will sip fine wine at the Hyatt, eat fancy food and so on, paid for by your taxpayer dollars to come and lie to the country. They will say that everything is good. And if anybody complains, well, you know, Rowley's answer is always, well, it could be worse. That's his answer. When people complain about things, it could be worse. Dr. Rowley, it could be better. It could be much better under the UNC government. It could be much, much better. No better than these colonial masters that we have. Let the people starve whilst they sit and eat at the Hyatt. And this spotlight on the economy we use as a mask to hide the truth about what is really happening in TNT. So if I may share with you in the first public meeting Rowley had, because that was like a forerunner for the spotlight, what they'll be coming to tell us. In that meeting they did, when was it? Tuesday? It was Tuesday night. The Prime Minister sought to tout his government's record on the economy. MP Tanku dealt with some of those issues here tonight. The main takeaway from that rant on Tuesday was that he wanted the nation to keep quiet on the areas of delivery that concern their daily lives. They should not be concerned with potholes. They should not be concerned with poor education access. They must not be concerned with access to CDAP medication, cuts to schools and social services. Because why? Crying, all the money was spent on what? COVID. Tanku did it right tonight. You hear a lie? That is big, big, big lie. This government has been notorious liars, but that has been the greatest lie they told. If they decided to bring up a fantasy so great, it will be unbelievable, but they will still spew it. And there's some who still get taken in by their lies, their distortions, and their contortions. The government received no less than US dollars, $644 million US dollars. You know what money is that? 4.5 billion TT dollars. They received that from whom? From the IMF. What did they get that money for during the pandemic? They took loans throughout the period amounting to more billions. They claim to have spent $5 billion on COVID-related support. And yet, we have had the highest death rate from COVID in the world, amongst the highest. Over 4,000 persons have died from COVID. But they spent over $5 billion, they tell us, to fool us on COVID. And so they don't want anybody to complain about their gross mismanagement, their corruption, their theft. They have used the majority of this money to enrich their friends, their family, and their financiers and family members, PNM friends. The Prime Minister seemed to be a shadow of his usual belligerent self on Tuesday, as he tried to sell the failure of the shutdown of Petrotrin. And we have shared this statement, would have spoken on it as well. The lies on Petrotrin was making a profit, but he was so short-sighted, no vision, or maybe he had something to hide, so he shut down Petrotrin, I don't know. And so he talks about selling Petrotrin, the shutdown, selling property tax, selling the revenue authority to the faithful. To debunk a few of the talking points, which had no doubt been dusted off in advance of the spotlight, on Tuesday the Prime Minister did this. His record in renegotiating with the energy majors. He did this without taking credit for the exodus from Point Lisas. And JJ is right. What is he going to Switzerland to talk to whom about what? What is he going there when we have no gas? What are you going to Switzerland for? This time you'll have to report, because we hold you to account. So Point Lisas, exodus from out of that. But he boasted he renegotiated with energy majors. And when he did that, it caused the shutdown of NGC that was so profitable. One of the most profitable state agencies, NGC, when he went up there and renegotiated, he said he was the best salesman in Trinidad. Renegotiated the price, the gas prices. Made a loss which we are still suffering from today. He boasted that even though he shut down Petrotrin, he did not lose the election. He said the PNM looks at the big picture, but the UNC only studies individual lives. They look at the big picture, suffer everybody, suffer everyone. But he acknowledged that the UNC considers individual lives. Yes, I'm proud of that. I am proud of it. I'm proud of that. I hope the members of the trade union movement heard when Rowley boasted of causing hardship and pain for the thousands of persons who lost their jobs. He boasted about the shutdown of Petrotrin, taking away these jobs. And it wasn't just the Petrotrin jobs, it was all the, lifeline or the borderline communities in Pointe-à-Pierre.
He said they should be happy.
They should be happy. He touted the Revenue Authority as a necessary institution. I want to remind you of the dangers involved, where the Director General of this TTRA will be politically appointed by the Cabinet of the PNM. And what is the TTRA? Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority. They come in for money from your pockets. And the people who will be administered will be a political appointee of a PNM cabinet. Do you see the danger in that? Again, this dictatorship that they're seeking to set up, this means the witch hunts the government has engaged in will not stop, will get worse when they bring this TTRA into being. We already saw the matter based on apparent bias. The state's case against persons in the airport inquiry was thrown out. We are marching headlong into the realm of injustice with this government's capture of more key institutions. I want to remind everyone that these institutions that the PNM have compromised are key for keeping law and order and social justice and democracy. After mistreating the health sector workers, this man stood up on Tuesday night, shameless. For 7 years, he come and say, I'm going to give some money to the health sector workers. Shameless, 7 years, where were you? What did you do? We'll wait and see what that means. Unfortunately, it will not address the working conditions they operate under. It will not address the lack of job opportunities for young doctors and other issues plaguing the health sector under this government. Roads will not remain substandard forever. Another boast from him. After 7 years of road breakdown everywhere in the country, everywhere, he tells us, they will not remain substandard. He said it was a question of priorities. It was not potholes in the middle of a pandemic. This is what he's boasting about, That's what he boasted about. We can see the roads around his golf course and Shagaramas, I'm sure. You from the West will tell me, I'm sure those roads are in tip-top condition around his golf course. He claimed they will reform local government. How many times, Khadija, have we heard that? Year upon year upon year, 7 years, and he's still talking about reforming local government. The same song they sang. Every time the local election coming up, local government reform. Local government reform. He tried to label the UNC as anti-CARICOM. He seems to have forgotten their attempts to support Granger's attempt to steal the election in Ghana. You remember that? He come now traipsing up and down with the president of Ghana like he's the best friend, when they and their operatives went into Ghana to try to steal that election from the present government. That has to be the most anti-CARICOM act that ever was. He feels good with how the PNM is managing the economy. The question is how citizens are feeling, especially the experiences of mass unemployment, runaway food prices. 2/3 of all households, based on the National Financial Literacy Survey of the Central Bank, reported they were negatively affected by the lockdown measures and the business closures during the past 2.5 years. This is from the Central Bank. 2/3. 2/3 mean 2 in every 3 persons badly affected. 29% reported they do not have money to make it to the end of the month. Not only this means they cannot save anything for a rainy day, but of course they cannot even get food on their tables. It means they will not be in a position to help with their children's education, health care, and in many cases saving for a family home. This is the Central Bank saying this, not me. And what is the Prime Minister's response? The driver driving good. That's his response. That's his response when his own Central Bank is telling us what's going on. There's a resounding chorus across the country showing Rowley cannot drive. That driver cannot drive. He couldn't even drive a golf cart when he bonks down somebody, bonks a lady. Yes? I want to remind members of the business community, the trade union movement, and the general public, the Central Bank in their survey published last quarter shows the fallout for families under this government. 39% have faced reduced earnings. 24% suffered temporary job loss. 20% faced permanent job loss. These are very alarming statistics, and they will come there on the spotlight or whenever, on the second, to boast how well they're doing. How can a government sit by where we have reports of 20% losing jobs? It means either CSO statistics are false or the central bank survey is false when it is reporting unemployment to date. And so despite everything collapsing around us, the whole country in a state of collapse, in a state of suffering, they will come to boast, but as I say, we will hold them to account. Yes. I will not attend the spotlight, because this man, if I say I'm not coming, like he does not attend if I don't go somewhere. So I will not give him that pleasure. Let's see if he turns up for his own spotlight on Friday, as he failed to show up. And he's still buffing us for that, you know, because the UNC councillors did not attend the sham papi show on local government. The man calling me foolish woman. Well, listen, Mr. Rowley, you are a foolish man, and you have to go. You have to go. You have to go. So friends and family, we are all UNC and proud. We stay together, we work together, we play together, we pray together. And we stay banded and united as one force with only one mission: to legally remove the Rowley government out of office. So good night, God bless, and UNC and proud. UNC and proud. UNC and proud.
Who feel the white? I don't know. But it's settled tomorrow night.